We are here. Welcome, all you heartbreakers, to another do-it-yourself episode of JunkCast. So, what is JunkCast, and why do you care? Just as a refresher, this is a super cash and DIY cast to showcase the recent trending topics and battles currently featured on the site, made by none other than all of you, you gorgeous people on entervoid.com. Regardless of time on the site or skill level, all comics are valid, and your efforts are appreciated. As for the why, we're here today to dish and get further deets on Intervoid's latest event, the Election Royale Re-Election Rumble, on none other than Valentine's Day, of all day. Because nothing says romance like gritty electoral drama in sequential form. I am your loquaciously lovable host, Kozispoon, also currently known as Ketchup in the official Void server, and with me is one of the people, a voider with all the candygrams, Platinum.
Hello, all. On the Intervoid side, I'm known as the Platinum Artist, but y'all could call me Platinum.
Excelente. So, Plat, now that I have you here, why don't you give us on this Valentine's Day of days a passionate refresher on what the heck the Election Royale even is?
With pleasure. With a smile currently terrorizing the city as Void's current mayor, this year's re-election campaign has turned into a coup. Five talented artists threw their characters into the ring and had 5 weeks to campaign with their words, whiz, and just plain old fisticuffs at a chance to be Void City's new mayor. In fact, here's a bit of fun little factoids about this current Royale. There are only two contestants who participated in the previous Royale, that being our current mayor, the Smile, and Casino Reasoning. As of right now,
Interesting.
yep,
I
as
didn't
of
know that. That was back in 2018, correct?
yes, back in 2018.
Oh, Platinum coming in with the with the historical books. I love it.
Of
Continue.
course, of course. And with that previous election royale, it had 28 votes, and as of this recording, this one has 25 votes. So my challenge to the community is, if we can beat it, can we double it? All right.
Man, a challenge. Look at Platinum coming in hard. I'm the co-host. Here's your challenge. That's great.
Of
Okay.
course.
Uh, as we said, there's a bit of a history with the election royale. It's been done before, and it's kind of followed a bit of a formula, as to say, because people think of being the mayor of Void City, and they think of podiums and grand speeches, and that's kind of been the formula up until 2018, when the Smile sort of came in to throw their hat into the ring, and they turned it on its head with their sort of Hunger Games inspired comic, and that just completely changed, at least I think, the formula for this current election campaign. What do you think?
Was that
Pregnant
my
pause?
is that my turn to speak? I'm terribly
Sure.
sorry. Um, it has been quite amazing to see the amount of talent and the amount of effort that's been put into this current election royale. So many amazing stories coming from all artists all around, big and small. And honestly, it's flabbergasted me on how incredibly talented these folks are.
I find it really surprising that people are just throwing the formula out the window and going, okay, we're going to do something completely new. And this election campaign has definitely been no exception. Everybody went completely different directions. That we went AU ways, we went Mad Max ways. It was really great. But just to narrow it down, we are going to be focusing, because there's so much to get through, on three just sort of interview style type of deep dives today. We're going to be getting some sweet deets from Dawn, whose character is Nyala, which is a blind psychic on the unsettling pilgrimage for, I'm totally going to butcher this, Guanjin? Guanyin? And then there's Jade, or Bobo, or even Little Bobo, or Dopey? I don't know. There's so many names. Their character is Antolin, an ambitious fashionista heroine who's made no bones about what she wants, and that's to be the queen, or mayor, whatever comes first. I think they just want to rule. And there is also Hella, or Hellas on the site, whose character is Akira, a very slick and sexy drag queen who owns the Spider's Bite, which is the place to go if you want some blood and or just rub shoulders with vampires.
And
Okay.
now due to time zones, differences in time zones, general exhaustion, and well, the day of Lemur that is upon us, some of the artists couldn't really make it audibly today. So they'll still be asked the questions, but we'll be here to provide you the answers. Now, just a little more quick tidbits that I found. I'm gonna just throw some random factoids at you, so
More
that way
history. I love it.
more history, of course. So we've counted all the pages of this year's Election Royale, which comes out to a grand total of 162 pages to read.
I
So if
just
you
want a
feel
spoiler
this is a
really
big
quick.
read,
Platinum counted all those pages. I said, "Yeah, yeah, dude, you can go do that. I'm gonna go, like, take a smoke break."
so if you think this is a big read, it is a big read, and we don't mind if you guys take your time on reading this, so that way you can comprehend and basically gather your thoughts about this. Now let's get into some of the more characters. This will be the Smile's 16th comic, Nyala's 4th comic, Casino Reasoning's 20th comic, Anselin's 25th comic,
Holy
Akira's 6th comic, and Egg Dealer's 16th comic.
that's a lot of comics.
That is a lot of comics to go back and read, and I highly suggest it.
Oh, I love that. No! I love that the Void Lecture Nose is saying, "Stop being a nerd." I love the nerd. I love all these, like, tidbits and stuff. I usually only get them with William Duell whenever he co-hosts, but I appreciate this, and I appreciate you, Platinum.
Thank you very much. It feels nice to be appreciated and part of the community.
Okay, without further ado, we're just gonna dive right into it. We are gonna start with Dawn, whose character is Neala, as
Okay,
an electoral candidate. And just to give you guys sort of a process of how we're gonna do this, we're going to have Platinum ask the questions, and I, with my dulcet, cozy spoony tones, will answer on behalf of Dawn.
gladly. Now, tell us about your process, your concept. What were your goals with this election?
Let me do my best channeling Dawn. I did the election mostly because I thought it'd be interesting to submit a character who A, did not want to join any election. The election process itself isn't even traditional in method by any means. And B, I wanted to give Nyala a monster form for the most part, which comes as no surprise if anybody knows Dawn as an artist here. When Elijah came into existence, which is the partner that is with Nyala in this election comic, I thought that it'd be nice to execute the contrast between the two and the fact that he actively does want to become a mayor, and thus is the real candidate between the two. Also, I just don't like drawing modern cityscapes, which, as a cozy spoonie note, is a genius way to go about it. Like, I highly recommend it. Continuing as Dawn. I wanted to change the design of Void City because I could.
Well then, what did you find the most difficult, and what did you find that was kind of easy?
Ahem. Staying motivated was difficult, which also a cozy spoonie note. That think that goes for every artist that gets into a really long tournament. Okay,
Ditto.
continuing, right? Okay, because it was impossible to skip around which pages I could and couldn't do with how many pages I had to do, which again, I'm totally interjecting here. I think Dawn of all the artists I think for this tourney did the most pages, so that makes sense.
I believe it
Continuing on.
was in the 50s?
Yeah, I think so.
57.
I got bored really quickly, knowing I'd have to do more exposition than I'd like to explain the characters, what they're doing, why, etc. The easiest part was making the story itself, and I already long since knew what I wanted, and it was easy to fit the characters into the roles that I had in mind. Okie dokie. Let me just switch it up a bit and ask the question, and I'll have you answer, Platinum, just to keep you on your toes.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty. Did you have a plan approaching each of your opponents, and did it succeed in the long run?
Plan for approaching them? Yes, but I'm still disappointed I couldn't flesh out my opponent's characters as much as I wanted, such as Buster Jones. It worked for specific characters such as the Smile, the Egg Dealer, even Akira, because their roles has been a long form story was minimal on purpose. Characters like Buster and Anselin required more pages, and I just didn't have time for it, and Elijah required people to actually read the comics he previously featured in to understand his motives, his actions, which I hope a lot of people did and remembered. For the Smile, a lot. Or really, what little was featured, because his character is based on the happenstance of Retribution, the Skyfall comic, which you should go and read. I wanted to enforce the fact that he calls himself the avatar of the city, being of bloodshed and chaos, and make that avatar sense kind of self literal through Nyala's own euphemism, enthusiasm for
There you
violence,
go.
I'm sorry, and the like. It also was helped that they had similar facial motifs in terms of scars, but very different expressions by default. The smile, while very smug and smiling, Niall's, well, frowning. Because of the setting Nyla's story is in the future, I need the smile dead in order to emphasize the fact that even in death, he still holds a very present hold of the city through terror. Through that terror, he claims as his own art, and his terror will continue. Just by another person's name, I gotta do everything I want to do with the smile in this comic. Because the smile we see isn't living or breathing. Joseph, he's just violence himself, looking for someone to pass the title down to. For Elijah, as an opponent to Nyala. I'm terribly sorry if I'm butchering the name.
You can always just go Nene, which is also a shorthand for that character's name.
Okay, Nene. Since several know of his character first and foremost for the fact outside the void, he is married to Nene. I needed to use this comic to establish as much as possible that the romance is far from a thought from either parties, and currently Elijah is very much an unhealthy thing for Nene. That they're opposites and soon enough enemies. Elijah left the Phoenix Coalition, but he still upholds their belief through his execution of other parties via Nene. He was a conduit to trigger Nene's dissent from the beginning, from him emphasizing that Nene has no one to blame but herself for the actions and consequences she faces, while sometimes forcing her to work with him without much consent, as in the first place. If the smile was a passive baddie, then I needed an active baddie in order to keep things interesting, and Elijah fit the role quite well, just to make everything, well, go to shit with his anti-meta thinking. He's fulfilled his role in the actual in enough in the actual comic. Let me try that again. He fulfilled his role enough in the actual comic, but I didn't get to establish that he dies. But feel free to add a quote unquote if you like at that end. For Anslin, her role kind of flip-flopped. After a conversation with Boa on how Nene and Anslin would get along due to being, polar opposites, Nene is introverted and Anslin is more of a social butterfly. I originally wanted them to be friends. It was going to be my way of giving Nene, one, a nice thing that she hasn't received at all throughout her comics, and then just rip it away from her to remind Nene that her comfort can only be founded in violence. It was only a matter of how, and I found it was best that they could relate through obsessions and escapism. Anselm wants to be queen at any cost, and in the face of those costs, she became isolated and forced to associate herself with someone who's only using her. Nene wanted to spread Gawain's word at any cost, and in the face of those costs, she is forced to associate herself with Elijah. Anselm finds escapism through Akira's mind manipulation, as wrong as it was. Nene finds escapism when perceiving violence, such as when she admitted to enjoying the sexual torture from NRB, proceeding to have sex with NRB. As wrong as it was, and I never thought I would say something like that. I figured this could work. Eventually, their friendship would dissolve, and because of Nene is the one who took away Anselm's one escape from her own obsession with queendom, even if it was because Elijah told her to. Nene still went through with it, and for the sake of her own pleasure, I didn't think I succeeded here because I didn't have a chance to establish the disillusion of their bond in the later act. For Akira, there's not much to explain here. Akira was ultimately a setup for things going to shit. Elijah was going to shit. Nyala was losing her shit. The first act villain and all that, whose death establishes that Elijah is the real issue here because he manages to convince Nene to kill both Egg Dealer and Akira with some rather instantaneous planning. And I didn't even have to lift a damn finger. If there's one bit of fleshing out I wanted to do, but was fine with leaving unincluded, was his talkative, promiscuous personality, as much as it discomforts Nene, because it reminds her of NRB. Really, it's part of the reason why she actively avoids talking to Akira and is pushed to telling him finally to, well, fuck off. She doesn't want to slip and go through another round of what happened with NRB. She learned, and opposing Akira's advances could have shown that subtly, but I'm satisfied with what I've done with him. Egg dealer? He was a wild card for as short as his appearances were. I had a lot of fun with. I enjoyed even drawing and writing for him the most, even if it didn't get through a lot in the comic. He's fucking wacko. I love it, and as much as I wish I could have figured to do more with them, I couldn't. And I usually figure this stuff out really quickly, so this was very exciting in a way. I really enjoyed doing the whole Ego my Lego vision. And at first, I was going to draw him normally as I could in my style, but I figured as much more entertaining to focus on the grossness of this character outside the arena. I think he's getting the queen of his dreams in the egg shaped palace of his dreams. And he stays in that dream as he's hooked up to the bunch of tubes left on his own body horrors as the regenerative eggs in his bodies are sapped from him as food and resource ad nauseum. And I figured that with everything that was said and done, his inmate eggs were also part of the hallucinative mumbo jumbo he creates for himself. Why not? I'm glad I got what I could out of him, even if even if some of it goes unexplained and thus is kind of lost in the text. His death is what triggers the story and really gets that ball rolling.
Pause, double pause, because I really want to talk about this character in particular because I think overall, I don't want to speak for all the artists, but I get the impression that Egg Dealer was definitely the wild card that people were like, okay, what do I do with this character? And I want to hear your thoughts on how this character was portrayed in Dawn's comic. Platinum Go.
What-
Anytime.
Oh, but I'm sorry, you cut out for me. What happened?
No worries. I wanted to ask, seeing the egg dealer was kind of the wild card for most of the artists, or at least that's the impression I got.
Mhm.
What were your thoughts on Egg Dealer as a character and how they were portrayed in Dawn's comic?
So, for most of Void's characters, they're either follow a simple formula for me, or they're like a battle character, or like there's some structure to it. Egg Dealer grabs off that and throws it out the window.
Yeah,
Egg
he does.
Dealer is Egg Dealer. Hell, even by his name, you know he's different. You don't have to question what he is or even what the hell he does just by his appearance. It's just like it catches your eye and just the absurdity of it all. It's a fun wild card, and honestly, you could do whatever you like with this character. It's pretty much amazing because he's like putty. He folds in your hands.
I think every single artist in this tournament had a lot of fun with this particular character. And I just want to put in a quick little tidbit because when I found out, I'm like, the people must know. So we have a certain scene in Dawn's comic where someone discusses egg dealers' heat cycles. And my first thought was, why? And secondly, who is to blame for that? Apparently, the person who gave Dawn that idea was none other than Pyrus Terran. I'm just saying.
Well, then that is a lot to find.
It blows my mind. Just the big reveal. I feel like Maury right now. The
Oh, and
tests have revealed that Pyrus Terran is the father.
of course.
But I
Okay.
digress. Continue.
Sure thing. With Buster Jones slash Casino Royale, I know I wrote his personality quite questionably in that he sidelines and acts rather, well, meekish. This is very much on purpose, as I specifically reference his meekness in the versus Keto Scar match, where it's established that he is the mayor's assistant. I wish I could have enforced this even more that he was the Smiles mayoral assistant, and his inaction post 2018 to 2020 in his comics pretty much reflect in his inaction during the actual comic. He doesn't really do anything because he doesn't have to. He just has to stay in his lane, and it's why he survives at the end. He literally walks out on the drama, and Nene just lets him live because A, the in the unadded dialogue, she calls his cowardice charming, and B, she needs a mayoral assistant, the one that fulfills that role once again. I wish I could really establish that as I didn't, and I know some people have been confused on why Elijah literally fucks Buster. The answer is in Buster saying someone needs to watch Egg Dealer for when he gets rowdy. Elijah distracts him with the prospect of sex. Oh, quaint. So with Sorry. So with that, Buster was literally sitting there, watching, waiting for, and begins with Nene's after kills the egg dealer. It's a means to an end, really.
Excelente.
Of
I'm gonna flip it.
course.
I'm gonna change it and reverse it. I'm gonna have you ask the question now, and I will answer stuff. Let's hit
Okay.
it.
All right, sure thing. So, what can you tell us about Nene's transformations?
Alrighty. Let's see. Nyala becomes a monster because my discography is full of them, which, if anybody knows Dawn as an artist on Intervoid.com, that is definitely a thing, and I agree. And I refuse to let Nyala be some weird exception to it, so fuck it. She becomes an Asura, which caught my eye specifically since, in some short manner or form, act in selfish ways which betray their faith. They belittle and act cruelly, or yeah, I'm saying that word right, cruelly, towards
Mhm.
others, but consider themselves justified in their actions, proud and righteous. Her physical transformation literally signifies that she will change emotionally as well, and she'll begin to lean towards her hedonistic elements that were a default to her character in other settings. While I didn't intend for her to be an Asura in the beginning, I certainly intended her to have a design with three faces on it to reference her past designs. Overall, the change is a homage to her character previous to Void, and it'll take a while for her to learn how to look human again. But otherwise, take this 9 foot bitch and like it, cause she ain't going anywhere for a while. And for those
Wow.
of you, yeah, I know, right? For
Wow.
those of you who haven't seen any of these fantastical tidbits, I want to share some of the concept art that Dawn was working on just to figure out the look of the character, which I think is fantastical. There is a second one that I'm going to share under spoiler because there is Tiddums, but it's nothing unartistic. I just really think the look is really great.
Wow.
Like even Nyala before this huge transformation, spoilers, was a fascinating character design in itself. I just think that this is a great marriage of uh their belief system and their whole sort of character arc and journey and the consequence of violence. I don't know. I just thought it was really great.
Yep. Ditto here, man. Spectacular. Now, if your character had a platform they were running on for this re-election royale, what would have been?
Let's see what Dawn has to say. None. Nyala wouldn't
Wonderful.
run again. She was interested in being mayor. The title was only a bonus, or she wasn't interested in being mayor. There you go. I can speak English. The
Mhm.
title was only a bonus to inheriting and accepting violence as part of her being, and she will most likely not be interested again. I, for one, and this is just Cozy Spoon speaking, am sad that we got so many like shit posts in the election royale hype posts of Nyala crying and walking away from a podium that I had it in my heart just to see that in the comic. But we didn't get that, and I'm sad.
Oh. Well, here's a question for the character. If your character wins, what will their first official act as mayor be?
Let's see what Don had to say. The Phoenix Coalition would be immediately dissolved. Not that I'm invested in that. However, violence would be encouraged, but not enforced. In the general populace, reminiscent of Old Void's swinging fighting roots. Nyala does not agree with the coalition's anti-meta beliefs, nor does she support in any persistent beliefs that the city is something that needs to be actively defended from anything, really. Be it anti-metas defending it from metas, metas defending themselves, the citizens defending their city, etc. In general, she would not necessarily be a bad mayor that leans one way or the other. She's pretty neutral, all things considered. Even her belief in Guan Yin, she would not enforce upon others. She just wants violence to exist. That is all. And I think that I just read Dawn's comment in the Void lecture notes. This is why Cozy shit voted against me. It's finally out. No, I
Oh, not
kid, I
now.
kid. No, I think that, this was my takeaway when I
Mhm.
read that fantastical chunk of comic, was that it felt like and feel free to agree or disagree with me, Platinum, that
Sure.
it was I love the mirroring between Smile and Ayala because it was just the same push for violence in the city and this, still giving blood to the blood gods, but it was just a different hat. It's like we had the Smile hat and the
Right.
violence ensued, and now we have this Nyala hat should she win and violence will ensue.
Of course, and it's kinda like a yin yang type of thing where it's both the same goal, but different means to the ends, which is
Yeah.
a very interesting way of looking at it, and I'm glad that this mirror exists.
Oh. Oh, and the character design was so good. It was very like I don't know if you got these vibes, but the scene where she's discovered kind of on this I'm assuming it's the ceiling and like looking down with the body of I'm not going to spoil it too much, but an unfortunate in her claws. I got so like aliens vibes. What about
Same,
you? Yeah,
same.
right?
Oh, I thought though I was the only one thinking that for a moment, cause like it's just it's the stance, it's the hunch over,
I know,
it's like the over the shoulder shot where you're like, oh fuck, what did I walk into?
right?
It
I
was
was
ooh goosebumps. Yes, 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 yes.
I was waiting for that acidy spit. Like, where was it? Maybe that would have been too much.
Maybe a bit too much.
But yeah, those are all the questions that I had, and those were all the answers that were provided. I just want to thank Dawn. I know that this was a labor of love. This was quite the Everest for you to climb, and I appreciate you even taking the time to answer this and even be here to give us a copy pasta for people to read along. Thank you very much. Alrighty,
Wonderful, wonderful.
we're gonna move on to Hade, Bobo, or little Bobo if you're nasty. Are you here, Bobo? I feel like I'm at a seance. Are you with us?
I am with you.
Oh, excelente. I'm so glad that you're here live because I have questions for you, and so does Platt. We will
Yes,
ask,
I
you
do.
will answer, and it'll be fantastical. Okay, let us begin.
Ooh.
Why don't you tell us about your process and concept for your election comic? What were your goals with this election?
So, um, obviously, the main goal was to win and make Anselm the queen. Um,
Naturally.
one one thing that I try to do, especially with Anselm, I sort of approach every character differently. But with Anselm, I really wanted to be true to all of my opponents as much as I could, while still adapting them to a story that is unique to Anselm. So I tried really hard to give all of my opponents good representation, to be true to their characters, how they would be, um, while also sort of adjusting them, like making them um, fit Anselm's sort of like fight to make friends style.
I love that. I
Okay.
love that, like, to be friends with Anslin, you gotta get that punch first. It's that
It's
friend punch.
it's the best way to make friends with her.
Right. All right. So why don't you tell us what did you find the most difficult? What did you also find that was particularly easy?
So first off, nothing was easy. The hardest thing for me was managing my own expectations and editing down. There was so much I wanted to do with this comic, and but in order to be able to actually finish it and turn in something that looks done, I really needed to cut out everything I could possibly cut out and like shorten some of the steps. Like I wasn't able to color it to the same degree as tag team tournament where everything was, multicolor and fancy color schemes all over the place. So I had to cut that down to, okay, let's just pick the best mood color for each scene. Um, I think
Still think
the
that you kept with the sort of, color theory and style of your last one. I definitely see this as sort of like the
Yeah,
next episode in keeping with your theme. So in that, I think you succeeded for sure.
good. I'm glad that felt consistent then. Um, I definitely have a special love for pink and purple, and I'm sure that showed in this comic as well.
No, I
Oh,
didn't notice
that
it.
definitely did notice that.
There was pink and purple, did you see that, Black?
All right. So, did you have a plan in approaching each of your opponents, and ultimately, did it succeed in the long run?
Okay, so um, like I said earlier, I wanted to stay truthful to the characters while also adjusting them as needed for Anselm's story. Um, the one character that I guess I put extra thought into was Nyla. Um, I think that's how I'm supposed to say it. But because sweet. because I know that her comics take place in an alternate universe slash distant future slash whatever, I wanted to sort of play with that. And instead of just transplanting Nyla as she appears in Dawn's comics into Anselm's world, I wanted to create this version of Nyla that is like it shares some characteristics with the real Nyla, but is just off in little ways. So I came up with this idea for um, first off, I asked Dawn about what Nyla was like when she was younger, and it seems like she was a lot more nervous and kind of the recipient of bullying when she was younger. So I sort of took that and rolled with it. Made her she's basically just an intern who got stuck in the Capitol. She was there during the Smiles big speech when he like slaughtered the city council and they started this whole Phoenix Coalition effort to get rid of all the metas. And so like her only way to stay safe was to pretend to be an intern there and to be working for Smile because that was like her protection. So she's here where she doesn't want to be, she's not supposed to be, and she's just trying to survive. So I had a lot of fun talking to Don, figuring out hopefully I did a good job of representing sort of a bizarro world version of Nyla as a younger person. Um,
Definitely, it was a way to lean into your strengths because I think it's no secret for people who know you and know you as an artist that your strength is in doing things that are aesthetically cute and I don't want to say chibi, but like there is definitely like a shojo sort of style or at least impression that I get to your work. And I
mhm.
was curious as to how you were going to fit Nayala in that because their style is definitely unique. But I love the way that you interpreted their AU-ness and made it your own so that she fit into your comic. I thought was just a genius move.
Yeah, and originally I was really excited about learning her because her body type is very unique, and
Mhm.
I wanted to practice that, and I still do. I would love to draw more Nyla as she really is, and not this weird alternate version of her. But I felt like changing up her body type was a good way to represent that this is not the real Nyla. It's Naya, this other character who just happens to be similar enough to be confusing.
And it's
So
not like you couldn't do the body type because I think
yeah.
if anybody goes through your pages and sees your version of the smile, and I mean, heck, even Egg Dealer, it shows that you have a variety of body types in here to even a horrendous degree.
Yeah, so Egg Dealer is another one that I had a lot of fun with. Um, so I noticed pretty early on in Egg Dealer's bio, it mentions that well, in his bio and in his comics, specifically Egg Jelly Jam Paste, which I highly recommend everyone goes back and reads Egg Dealer's entire discography, all of his comics. He obtains this power called egg muscles, which
Oh.
I don't know exactly what Boogie means by that, but I thought it would just be amazing if I took that literally and say that he has eggs within his body that form muscles, and that all of this mass that he's put on is not just extra fat; it's actually eggs inside of his body.
Well,
And
I
scientifically speaking, eggs do have a high source of protein, so I guess.
yeah,
I gotta say, I was horrified by this rendition of Egg Dealer, but I was horrified in such a good way. I loved it.
yeah, and I I wanted to make him feel kind of like um like larger than life. Like
Mhm.
he's not human. He's like a monstrous transformation of a human. But at the same time, I wanted him to feel. Um, I still wanted to remain true to him in the sense that I still wanted him to feel like the protagonist of his own story, Like, he has his own goals. He's not a malicious being. He just is kind of he's doing his own thing. And I also wanted to keep the like cuteness in the face that Boogie gives him. So I gave him like eyelashes and very round eyes and just tried to make his face kind of cute. Um,
I think you succeeded. I love the look. It's so great.
I had so much fun with him. I
So
also wanted
glad.
to mention, um, as in terms of his scale, which in this comic I'm sure you've noticed is a bit up to interpretation. Um, If you look at his profile on the site, under height it's listed as see him and see, which
Oh gosh.
is like go wild. Egg dealer is as big as you want him to be, and so I just had fun with that. Um, for the other characters, I wanted to bring in the things that, as far as I could tell from their stories and from what little I discussed with the other artists, I wanted to bring in their motivations. Like Buster Jones, I I picked up on him being the assistant to the mayor as well, like what Don said. Um, but also he's been running for mayor over and over, so I knew that he would want that. And I also rolled with Fred's side of his match with Anvil. I know that Reeser ended up winning that battle, but I felt like the seeds of what Fred did showed sort of what Buster's goals were. So I
Mm.
rolled with that and said, okay, Buster, I can't make Buster the mayor because Anselin has to be mayor. But what I can do is have him be an important part of sabotaging the smile because that's something he clearly wanted to do.
There can only be one, and I
There
love
can
that.
only be one.
And there are some other motivations that I didn't have time to get into with him. If I end up winning, and if Fred wants to explore that more, then there may be more of that in the future.
We
But the
can
most
only
important
hope.
thing is just that he makes it clear that he wants to take down the smile, and played a part in paving the way for Anselin to be able to get in there and kick his ass.
And on
Gotcha.
that note, what can you tell us about Anselin's journey during this election?
Um, so something that was kind of nice about this is because Gregory and I did so much setup for it through tag team tournament. It was kind of like we had laid all the plans and now it was just about execution. Um, so we had already shown like her establishing her colony, saying that she's ready to become queen. We'd seen her thesis statement about what she wants to accomplish as queen. So now it's sort of like the final boss rush to the final boss, which is the smile. So I wanted to make it her um, facing each opponent head on and befriending them because that's her style. Up until the smile, who's like he's the ultimate final boss. It's impossible to befriend him because he's just that evil. Plus, I had this great idea for what to do with him at the end. Um,
Kind of dig the fact that you I don't want to I can't find a better word to say than respected that, because it is very easy to sort of mash a square character into like the round, I guess, comic that is yours, and just be
mhm.
like, oh, I'm just gonna make it fit, I don't care. Like, even if if it goes against the character, I'm just gonna go for it. But the fact that you said that the smile is unfriendable I think is very apropos to the character, and the fact that you made him the big bad boss and you interpreted him the way you did and what ultimately happens to him, I thought was a really smart move.
Yeah, I apparently it was a smarter move than I expected because he then had some feelings about it. So I'm glad it worked. Um, it would have felt very out of character for him to become friends with Anselin, whereas I feel like all the other characters have, on some level, a reason to be friends with her.
Mhm.
Um,
I don't see the smile in Anselin's top 8. That's all I gotta say about
yeah,
that.
Most
the
definitely.
the one place they would get along is that they both love violence, but the
Mm,
Smiles' violence is very different from Anselm's violence.
all right. I
And
do want to add one more thing because you specifically feature it when Anselin is dealing with the smile, which is this little like Jaime hammer. Which, for those who don't know the ancient lore of the site and of older characters and Anselin's history, why don't you give us a little bit of a background behind that?
Okay, so back in the olden days of 2013,
The before
uh,
four time.
yeah, in the before times, um, in the tag team tournament in 2013, which was Gregley and I's first tag team tournament. So this this last year's was sort of um, our attempt at coming back. Uh, the comic that just really changed the whole face of Void was the tournament arc of Jaime the Fish Boy and Toro Joe. Um,
That's a
this
great
was an
matchup.
incredible team up between two traditional artists with extremely different styles who did an amazing job of mixing and matching their styles. Basically, Jaime entered the site as this sort of science experiment gone wrong, who was basically a cartoon who wasn't a cartoon. But long story short, he threatened Void City with a giant meteor, took all of the interesting characters, quote unquote, up into the sky, dropped the meteor, flattened the city, and then dropped the planet or the spaceship that he had taken everyone up in back down. Basically, just reset Void with all the interesting characters and all the uninteresting like side characters and NPCs. They were all gone. And then
Yeah.
he fucked off to this fourth dimension that he really came from. He was actually this insane, like higher level being. And that was the last we saw of him. And I've always wanted to do something with that. It,
I love
it
that. I love that.
yeah.
Like
And
whenever artists go like, that was a great event or that was a great moment, I'm going to utilize it into my comic and just sort of add on to that lore. I love it when artists do that.
yeah. And it never showed up in Anselin's comics because I got lazy back when it happened. But she and Jaime were actually in a gang together at one point. So because they like already have that connection, I thought it would be really fun for her to have some sort of access to him that other characters might not have. Um, so yeah, I thought it would be a fun shout out to bring him in. Fun fact: Anselin's crown is also a reference to Jaime. It is the crown that he was wearing during that tag team tournament.
You find these relics. I think that's great. Although I also forgot, there's also the Jaime hand that you added as well.
Yeah, so I wanted to introduce the idea that she has gadgets based on Jaime that can break the fourth wall in ways that even Anselin doesn't really understand.
Oh, that's great. I love that. But I digress. I'm lingering. I'm sure we have more questions for you.
of course we do. Now, if your character had a platform that they were running on for this re-election royale, what would it have been?
So that was made explicit in our tag team tournament finale. It's basically there's room for everyone in Void. Um, and with this comic, I wanted to make that sort of a meta thing as well. And say that not only is there room for every type of character in Void City, there's also room for people to make comics of any genre that include any level of like shared canon, quote unquote, with other people. You can do your own thing, and it's Void is still a place for you, um,
That
which is sort of what I was going for with the ending sequence. So
and
that's sort of
that
my
is
thesis for this comic and Anselin's platform.
of course, and that's an excellent message that I can completely get behind. I mean, Void is such a welcoming place that you can get involved in, meet so many different and very talented folks, and it's awesome to see a character utilize that message make that what they are, and it's really cool that you touched on that.
Personally think it's neat that you even though the podium we're going to speak and make my speech and make my case for why I should be mayor has kind of, at least for now, been dead and gone, you've kind of reinvented it in a more actiony way in Anselm's behavior and her message and how she's interacted with each of the characters to sort of roundaboutly be on the metaphorical podium and be like, this is why I'd be a good leader and this is why we need to stand together and we're stronger together rather than apart. I'll see what you're doing.
Yeah, she's a grassroots podium type.
I dig it. All right, last question for you. The big one. If your character wins, what will be their first act as mayor?
Well, I I guess you'll just have to wait and find out.
Oh, come
But
on.
more more
You gotta give
importantly,
us something. Just a little tidbit, a little Valentine sweet.
Peter wants me to talk about my dog.
Oh my
That was
goodness.
Oh my, oh
the
dear.
end. Uh,
Cute
and
dogs, by the way.
she was very helpful and compliant. My other dog Sunny was not as compliant, which is why there's only one dog in it. Originally, I wanted two, but we take what we can get here. Um, anyway, so the most important thing in terms of this comic, and really it doesn't matter if Anselin wins or not. What I want people to take away from it is that if you want to do something on Void with your comics, just do it. Don't worry if it deviates a little bit from what other people are doing. Don't worry if it's your completely own universe. Like, part of why I left the end of this comic without a, a super detailed wrap up of what happens with Anselin next is I want people to feel like they can take this and go with whichever direction they want. Um, I think in terms of Anselin's goals as a leader, uh, she wants to create an environment where people can be safe if that's what they want, but people can also have the opportunity to fight and like have the full insane void experience. Which, in her opinion, if you choose to live in void, that's probably what you want. But she wants there to be a place for everyone, and so probably her first thing will be to establish her mountain district as a safe zone for people who don't want the insanity that is the rest of Void City.
Oh my gosh, what a candidate. Oh, I wish her luck. I do have one more tidbit question, which is sort of an extra freebie if you want to answer. I just wanted to touch upon the really great chapter images that you put forth
Oh
in between each character, because I think anybody can notice that these are photographs that you took the time out to sort of
yeah.
conceptualize and sort of make it thematic to each character. Like when I turned to them, I knew that the next chapter was going to be about the smile or egg dealer. Can you give us a bit of like behind the scenes action explanation as to how you set that up?
So I one of the big problems I had in my heavyweight comic, which was my last battle royale I was in, is I tried too hard to make the narrative one continuous narrative, which ended up meaning that I had to force characters to all show up. So with this comic, I realized that it would make a lot more sense for Anselin to just take things one character at a time and then cut to a new chapter for the next like battle that she has to face or next character she needs to befriend. So I just wanted to do something fun to set up each new chapter, and I thought using photos would be a fun um, mixed media kind of approach, and also it it feeds into the end of the comic. But mostly, I just wanted to do something different for the chapter headings to make them interesting, and
And
because this is just a fun approach.
as somebody who's also done tournaments, I think that in our void lecture notes, Pyrus Terran kind of hit the nail on the head in that breaking it up into sort of episodic chapters is really good story budgeting, because when
Yeah,
you're doing a big tournament and a long form narrative, it is really tough to kind of ensure that you're linearly trying your best to cover everybody and feature each of your opponents in a fair way. And for those of you looking to get into a tournament, this is definitely a great example of how to go about it in a way that doesn't make you spontaneously combust with stress. At least not too much. I can't guarantee that Bobo is stress free.
Oh, I can guarantee you that I am not stress free.
Oh dear.
But have you combusted?
um, think so. I seem to be alive.
Okay, good. Let
We'll
me
see.
see. We'll see. And I definitely wish you luck in the tournament. And those are all our questions for you. Thank you so much for coming live and answering these for us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yay. All right. We are going to move on to the final featured artist, which is Hella or Hellas for the site. And we have questions for them as well. Unfortunately, they couldn't make it, but we have questions and we will answer, which
And
is I will ask and Platt will answer. Are you ready?
all right, hold on. I have to put on my Hellas costume on.
Okay, got it. No problem.
Okay. I'm good now. Let's go.
Awesome. All right. Tell us about your process and concept. What were your goals with this election?
Well, my process was unfortunately shot to pieces due to like school and mental issues. My concept was to tie the entire thing to like old void lore, just to make it some big reference to things I love, like Nick Cage stealing the Declaration of Independence. That's kind of where I got the idea from for the deed, and also to show that Akira is scheming and amassing contracts about.
I personally really love that. I love the fact that Hella is an artist that isn't afraid to take on big concepts, and they also have a shared love of old void lore, which I personally enjoy, and it's clear that Bobo enjoyed. So it was great to see it with yet another artist.
Of course, and it's definitely an uphill battle, especially when you try to do things with a certain theme or aspect to them, where
Hmm.
you have either like a shtick or a gimmick. It's an uphill battle, and not everyone's going to get it, but sticking to your guns completely gets my respect.
Yeah, for sure. All right, next question. What did you find the most difficult, and what was easy?
Difficulty, outside the obvious, the fact that I struggle to do anything until the last minute. Besides that, let me see. Backgrounds, I suck at them. Perspective tends to break my brain. The easy thing was to write the dang thing. It was a lot of fun, and it was fun when it's easier.
I will halfway. I mean, I know that Hella is not here to defend themselves or argue with me, and for that I apologize. But I want to interject here and say that I halfway agree slash disagree with them because I've seen their previous comics and I've seen the battles that they've been in, and they've really pushed themselves when it's coming to sort of panel composition and backgrounds. Like I've seen a lot of their works in progress, which they're more than happy to share in art show on the Entervoid Discord, and their concepts with like the cathedrals and buildings that they've done, when they really put their mind to it, I think that they have a real skill in that for sure.
Uh, Most definitely. One of the cool things about this Election Royale is that when I was doing a bit of the research of all the characters, like I was able to look back and see some of the previous works, and
You
in
mean
fact,
when you were
seeing
going
them
full nerd?
growing. Yes, I guess you could call it going full nerd. I call it doing research. As I adjust my glasses.
Love it. Alrighty. Let me see. Where did I leave off? Okay. Did you plan or did you have a plan or approach for each of your opponents and did it succeed in the long run?
Well, I feel like I needed to go more ham on Egg Dealer. My
Oh
version
my
of him
gosh.
was like too normal. I could have also done a better job with Casino to some degree. But honestly, I'm happy with how the whole split scenes back and forth game at least gave everyone some time.
Yeah, for sure. I don't mean to rewind, but I wanted to make a comment on the first question where they made mention of Toast Bar, which I think is a neat little tidbit of Void history. Like Toast is kind of the reason why we're all here. They kind of are Phantom of the Opera of the site, and they were sort of a I wouldn't classify them as a fourth wall breaking character, but they were basically the center of all things when it came to Void, and Toast Bar was just the place that you could go. So the fact that this was featured is sort of How would you describe it, Platinum? Sort of like a
Of the fact that they like reintroduce something that's so old and not a lot of people may know about it. It's honestly, it's kind of neat because like those who will get the references will be like, "Oh, it's that place! I know that place!" And then
yeah.
new people would look at it and be like, "It's just a rundown beat up bar. What's so great about it?" And then you get to learn about the history of this place.
Oh, I know. I love that. Oh, I love it when
Yeah.
artists do that. It makes me
Most,
super nerd out,
oh, most definitely. And then it gives me something to read.
right?
Of
More
course.
comics, please. All right,
Yes.
more questions. If
Uh-huh.
your character had a platform and they were running for re-election royale, what would it have been?
The platform was that Void can literally take over the world. No joke. What power on earth can withstand little god killers and angry French spider women?
All right.
Ah.
If your character wins, what would their first act as mayor be?
Well, the first official act shall be declare full independence of Void, unite Void in a purpose through power and manipulation, and to basically become Queen Bitch after it all.
I like that in a way, Akira and Nyala's motivations may have been different, but they were kind of the same. Like it was the mantle may have been passed from the smile to them, but it was the same violence, just a different flavor.
Exactly. It's a different method, but it's the same means. It's so cool seeing like this version of needing of conflict showing through each character's different eyes, and it's really neat to look at different perspectives.
Yeah, for sure. I do want to personally thank Hella Hellas. Not sure which one you prefer for giving us these answers to these questions and taking the time out. I know that you were completely exhausted, as you should be, because you worked really hard. All of you worked hard.
Everyone worked very hard.
And I love the fact that you guys took the time out so that we could feature this and just show the people all this great stuff. Like I have been fascinated with Akira's journey, and personally find them to be one of my favorite characters of this artist. So I was really excited when they entered the tourney. Do you have any final thoughts, Platinum?
Um, Besides just it's a big read having these six talented individuals go up against each other, and honestly, I I've been super happy just looking through it all, learning about old history, seeing how these characters evolve, develop, and essentially become this huge event. It's really neat, and if you're listening to this and you haven't read this, read it. Please read it now. Help
And you
read
have
it while you're
and
doing
you
this.
have a completely full 2 weeks to vote as well. So give your feedback, show all these artists some love, and just may the best mayor win.
Of course,
So
of course.
that is it, or at least that's half of it, because you're probably wondering, after we just went through only 3 artists, and there's more than that for this tourney, where the rest of the candidates are.
Tune in next week for the next installment of the JunkCast, where we'll have Fred, Boogity, and the incumbent Heathen, who will be grilled and interviewed that allow us to get inside their heads and get those sweet, sweet deets.
I want to thank Bobo for gracing us with their melodious voice and dropping all those delectable extra comic bits. And of course, Platinum for joining me today to help
You're
tackle all
welcome.
these, oh, thank you, all these girthy interviews and answering all these very long questions and answers. And especially all of you live listeners who just can't wait for staff to upload these audio suckers. Nay, you got to be here, front and center. And I appreciate all of you. So, for the both of us, happy Valentine's Day to you lovers of comics. This is JunkCast signing off. Bye bye.
Bye bye now.